What's going on, guys? It's been a little bit, and we're about to get the brand new season, but I wanted to give you guys the top 5 best loadouts in Warzone 2. I also wanted to give you guys the best TTKs. I wanted to let you guys know why these are the best weapons, and last but not least, how good you'll do in battle with these. So, these are all weapons that basically anybody can use. They're mainly going to be meta. In fact, the number one weapon is going to be probably the hardest but the best TTK overall. Everything else is going to be weapons that you can just use regardless of level or skill. So starting at number 5, we're actually going to use the TAC 56. I call it the ACR just because it basically functions like the ACR. Now we're starting out with the Harbinger D20 muzzle, and this helps with sound suppression, bullet velocity, damage range, and recoil smoothness at the cost of aim down sight speed, aiming stability, and aim walking speed. Now I set the bullet velocity to 0.81 inches just because after that it doesn't really help anymore. And then I put the recoil smoothness to 0.54 ounces just because it had the same effect. After 0.54 around that range, it doesn't really benefit much, so there's no point in really changing it anymore. I put on the 17.5 Tundra Pro barrel, and then I maxed out the damage range because it actually does help all the way to the peak. I also increased the recoil steadiness by 0.35 pounds because after that, it doesn't really help anymore. The pros are damage range, hip fire accuracy, and bullet velocity at the cost of aim down sight speed and hip recoil control. I put on the FSS Combat Grip. This helps with recoil control at the cost of aiming stability. So I increased the aiming out stability at 0.35 inches and the recoil steadiness by 0.55 ounces. I put on a 60 round mag, but if you want to use the 40 round, you'll have more mobility overall. And then I put on the 5.56 high velocity ammunition. As you guys see, it actually decreases damage range. So we almost maxed out the damage range. It looks like around 0.61 Gs. It doesn't change anymore. So you can raise it at that point. And then I maxed out the bullet velocity. Just to show you guys how good this weapon is, we're going to go into the firing range real quick. Let this thing level up, well line up. And basically zero recoil and extremely high amounts of damage is something that I highly recommend. So this is something that anybody can literally use. Like if you have everything unlocked already, this is something that you can use and have no hard time, obviously. Like I'm not crouching, I'm not mounted. This is just something that has very low recoil. So, you know, anybody that has this weapon, just use this weapon if you want to get easy kills. Like I highly recommend it. Number 4, we're moving on to the Castolf 762, and this is another weapon that I think is absolutely amazing. It actually isn't that hard. It has slightly more recoil than the TAC 56, but in my opinion, it's not even that noticeable. I put on the Polar Fire S muzzle, and this helps with sound suppression, bullet velocity, damage range, and recoil smoothness at the cost of aim down sight speed and aiming stability. I increased the bullet velocity entirely, like it's already maxed out, and I increased the recoil smoothness by 0.72 ounces because at that point it doesn't benefit. I put on the Cast 10 584 millimeter barrel. I tuned it to increase the damage range at 0.28 inches and the recoil steadiness around the same because after that it doesn't really benefit much. This increases the damage range, bullet velocity, hipfire accuracy, and recoil control at the cost of aim down sight speed, hip recoil control, and movement speed. I put on the aim op V4 because honestly, this is a secret cheat code. Like this is an incredible sight that not everyone's a fan of, but I feel like it basically gives majority of the weapons you put this on zero recoil. I put on the Demo X2 grip because it helps with recoil control at the cost of aiming stability. So I increased the aiming out stability by 0.15 inches. This isn't something you can really tune that much because it doesn't benefit as much as you would think. But I increased the weight by 0.29 ounces for recoil steadiness. And I put on the 40 round mag. And just to show you guys the product of this weapon, it's so amazing. This is something that kills incredibly quick. The only downside is, like I said, there's just a little bit more recoil. In my opinion, it is kind of controllable though overall. So if you're handling short to mid-range gunfights, you're literally good. Long-range gunfights just want to get a tiny bit dicey just because of the bouncing. But overall, I think it is a fantastic weapon. It basically reminds me of the AK-47, and so treat it as such. Next, we're moving on to the mini Bach, and this is a overall amazing SMG just in regards to the ammunition. It has so many bullets to spare, and it has pretty good damage. Not the best, but pretty decent. That's why I make it the number 3 top 5 weapon. Put on the X10 RR40 for the sound suppression, bullet velocity, damage range, and recoil smoothness at the cost of aim down sight speed and aiming stability. I maxed out the bullet velocity and increased the recoil smoothness by 0.45 ounces. Just at that point, it doesn't really benefit anymore. Put on the Bach 9 279mm barrel. This helps with damage range, hip fire accuracy, and bullet velocity at the cost of aim down sight speed and hip recoil control. I maxed out the damage range and maxed out the aim walking speed. I moved on to the Schlager Peck Box 4. This helps with aim down sight speed with no cons at all. Put on the Marquise R7 stock. This helps with crouch movement speed, sprint speed, and aim down sight speed at the cost of recoil control. Now, you don't really notice the reduction of recoil control because this already has amazing recoil control. I maxed out the aiming out stability by 2.4 inches, and then I increased the aim down sight speed by 1.94 ounces on the negative side. Put on the true tack grip because it helps sprint to fire speed and aim down sight speed at the cost of some recoil control. So I increased the recoil steadiness by 0.52 ounces and did not change the width. I'll show you guys the product of this weapon. It is amazing and highly recommend using it. Short to mid range is obviously a slapper. Now long range is something where you most likely have to do burst fire it. Otherwise, you're going to be spraying all over the place. We'll actually show you guys kind of the downside of just trying to spray this long range. You guys see it's going to start bouncing all over the place. You're going to start missing bullets. So the best thing you can possibly do, like I said, for long range, you can burst fire if you absolutely have to, but please try to stick to an assault rifle for long range if you're playing Warzone. Number 2, we're showing you guys the Fennec, and this bad boy is insane. Now, we have no smoke effect issue, so this is something that you can definitely use with no visual issue, and it has essentially the best TTK for SMGs. So this is the ZLR 16.5 ignition barrel. It helps with the damage range, bullet velocity, hipfire accuracy, and recoil control at the cost of aim down sight speed, hip recoil control, and movement speed. Now, I increased the damage range by 0.25 inches and maxed out the recoil steadiness. Move on to the VLK Laser 7MW. This helps with aim down sight speed, aiming stability, and sprint to fire speed at the cost of the laser being visible in ADS. So how I kind of fix that issue is, well, I'll show you in firing range, but essentially either I'm not ADSing right away or I'm ADSing something that they won't see the laser. I'll demonstrate it in firing range to make it more understandable. Put on the Agile Assault 7 stock to increase sprint speed, aim walking speed, crouch movement speed, and aim down sight speed at the cost of aiming stability and recoil control. I maxed out the aiming out stability and decreased the weight by negative 2.06 ounces to increase the aim down sight speed. I put on the Fennec rubber grip, helps sprint to fire speed, and aim down sight speed at the cost of recoil control, so I increased the recoil steadiness by 0.42 ounces. I put on the Fennec Mag 45, and just show you guys the product of this. Some people would think that the reductions of recoil would be detrimental to this weapon, but trust me, look at this. Absolutely insane. It's an incredible weapon at short to mid-range. Long range, you're going to have to burst fire. I'm going to show you the negatives of trying to use this long range. I mean, it's worth a try, but in my opinion, I'm going to completely reload. In my opinion, you're better off just burst firing. Like I said, it is something that you actually can get done, but in my opinion, you're just better off burst firing so you're not in a predicament where, say, you run out of bullets and then you die. See, I ran out of bullets with not the 45, and if I just burst fired, I would have been better off. Now, the number 1 gun in Warzone 2 is the TAC V, and this is amazing just because it has such an amazing TTK, and the only downside is it has a little bit more recoil than the other weapons. Now, it starts out with the Custovia DX90, and this is for sound suppression, bullet velocity, recoil smoothness, and recoil control at the cost of aim down sight speed, aim walking speed, and aiming stability. Now, I increased the bullet velocity at 0.84 inches, and I increased the recoil smoothness by 0.90 ounces. Put on the 18-inch Precision 6 barrel. This increases damage range, hip fire accuracy, and bullet velocity at the cost of aim down sight speed and hip recoil control. I maxed out the damage range and increased the recoil steadiness by 0.39 pounds. At that point, I didn't see any further benefit. Put on the Secret Optic, which is the Aim Op V4, and maxed out the far range. Put on the 50-round drum, and then put on the F-Tac Ripper 56 for aiming out of stability, hip fire accuracy, and recoil stabilization at the cost of aim down sight speed and walking speed. Now, I increased the aiming out of stability by 0.23 inches and recoil stabilization by 0.80 ounces. And the outcome is this bad boy right here. Now we're going to go into the firing range. It absolutely melts so quickly. It's literally a stronger TAC 56. And the good thing about it is this isn't actually something you need to focus on the upper body. You can focus on literally the mid body and still absolutely melt. So this is something that I highly recommend. If you are willing to use something that has a little bit more recoil, you're going to absolutely be rewarded for the shots that you actually hit. So one thing I do notice, and you guys are probably going to notice too, is it does have an upward kick pattern. So in fact, aiming higher up may be a downside. So try to aim towards the middle, which people usually do anyway. People typically aim towards the middle, and you'll most likely get a headshot that'll get you the kill.